really know why, but Unburied Carol and Inspection have always been sort of like brother and sister to me, and I don't know why. They could not be further apart in voice, in subject matter, in feeling. Carol is super colorful, and Inspection is not just because of the winter uh games and stuff, icy look. And they did come out right next to each other, and they both have like super sort of bright covers, but they were written right next to each other too. Like Inspection was the seventh book I wrote, and Carol was the eighth.
I felt that way when I was rereading Inspection. I was like, oh, these go together like really well.
Why though? I don't
I
understand why.
don't know.
It's a very strange combination that I don't know. I don't know what it was. It must be the energy behind it or something. I don't even know.
I have to put my glasses on really quick. I wanted to show you my new glasses before we get started. Why are you laughing?
What, things are gonna be like googly eyes or something?
No, I would never do that to you. Just now I'm like self-conscious to show you. They're not googly eyes.
Yeah, I'm like, no way. No, no. I know you too well now. I'm like, nope, there's something coming.
There's a whole cast of characters over here beside me, just waiting. So, um, no, I felt the same way when I was rereading Inspection, and I thought it was maybe just because I was reading them back to back. I mean, I do think that they kind of have the same themes running throughout them.
Look,
Um, like, well, guilt is a big one.
okay, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, secrets.
And also you could Moxie's not a dad, but I went through, I guess you could consider a bad dad phase where Bird Box, Bring Me the Map, the original Decorum at the Deathbed, and Inspection, and then on Mary Carol were all written in a row.
Okay.
And Bring Me the Map is the worst dad of all. But Bird Box is interesting because do we ever get his name? Do we ever even
No.
know who the dad is? And I mean, it's not like it just opens with Mallory's pregnant. Well, opens with the boy, but she's pregnant, but we never know what led to that. She's
Yeah.
just so an absent father, a cheating father, a buffoon of a father in Decorum at the Deathbed. That one's a guy is tasked with burying mom, and it's a disaster by the time the kids arrive. And then Inspection, I don't know what you would call this, like a controlling madman of a father. And Carol, he's not a dad, but he abandoned her.
Yeah.
And so it does kind of work in that way still too.
Yeah. I agree with you. There is feels like there's something else there though that really does like connect them.
Yeah, it's more spiritual. It's not
Yeah.
so literal. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I love Inspection though. I think it's one of my favorite stories.
Man, thank you. Yeah, Inspection. I guess it would have to be Decorum at the Deathbed. I can't remember what I finished. Maybe it was the second half of Bring Me the Map. I can't remember right now. But I finished another book, and Still Life was like this as well. And like the next day, I'm like, hey, maybe I'll try another one, or a week later. And with Inspection, it was sort of like, let's just keep our, stay in practice. Let's stay in writing shape. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the rough draft was like 100 and I think 21,000 words. And that was without the K section. We never went to the girls' tower. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know this story? How
I didn't
Alice?
know this. No.
I I don't want to like ruin a question of yours or something, but I may as well just tell this story right now. I was about a week away from being done with the rewrite, and it went from 121 down to like 80. I mean, this was like a third of it was gutted. It was like tight. It was this. And Allison says to me, I can still see myself putting the leash on Valo's collar. And Allison said, you really should have a moment where when J and K meet, then we then go to K's tower for like the same amount of time, like tell their whole story. And I'm like, Allison, that's like 120-page idea. And I'm like literally a week away from turning this in. I go outside with Valo and I'm walking her around the block. This is before we had a yard at all. And I'm walking around the block and I'm like, oh shit. Oh shit, I have to do this. And I called Ryan Lewis, my manager, told him the idea. He's like, yeah, you have to do that. And I talked to Trisha at Del Rey, and she's like, yeah, you have to do it. So I was a week away from turning this book in, and Allison was like, what's Kay's story?
That's it's well, it's hard to like imagine now without
No,
Kate's
she's the
story.
star. To me, she's the
Yeah.
star of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
She
know.
she is well, she is to me too, and she's not like I kind of consider her like almost like the fiery spirit in the book. But I
Yeah,
really
yeah,
do consider Jay like kind of the heart of the book too, because he's just so good. And I think he like wants to try to be so good. Um, like they really feel like two different like good characters to me. Like she's so spunky and like brave, and he just seems like I want to do the right thing, but also like I want to know more about what's going on.
yeah, yeah, right, exactly. It's like, I guess that makes him a little bit complex, right? Because he's not a goody two shoes, but he wants to be liked and he wants to do
Yeah,
well and he wants to do right. But at the same time, he does want to know the truth.
right.
And that's interesting that you almost, huh? I never really thought of Jay in that way before. Like he's a little more complex, like because you could see him as just like obedient or scared. But no, I mean he's like taking chances, he's taking risks, he
Yeah.
wants to know the truth. And I love how frustrated and in love with Warren's book with needs. I love that. That's one of my favorite parts is when he's reading that book and he's like, no, no, how, no, why would someone do that? And all these weird words like bar and obviously and he's like, what is going on? This is the crazy, this is, and we can tell that he's like enamored with what he's reading, even though he's like getting more and more frustrated and confused and whatever. But
Yeah, well, and I think it almost feels like when he's reading it that he's glad he has it, but he's also frustrated that someone's confirmed kind of his suspicions and like
yeah,
what he's been leading up to. I also saw Jay as like kind of a mix to me of like Q and D put together. Like Q seems like he's like more obedient, but kind of cluing into what's going on. And D
yeah,
to me is like over it. Like he's figuring it out. He doesn't want to be obedient anymore. And Jay to me was
yeah,
like a good middle of those two characters.
yeah. D, I kind of base that on Derek, the drummer of the High Strung, because Derek's always been like the coolest guy any of us have ever known, like forever. He's a hockey goalie. He drives a motorcycle. He has amazing hair. He kind of looks like
He
a
does have
young.
amazing hair.
He's always kind of looked like a young Richard Gere, and he's a drummer, and he's funny as hell, and he doesn't freak out with anxiety like every one of his friends do. And so D was some of that for me in the book, was like some sense of like some suspicion of the entire enterprise, some a little bit cooler than this room is really allotting for. Q, I mean Q invents God.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Q's like DAD is like, wow, Q like invented God. Like Q is like special. I don't which is the one, is it, there's one that's like obscenely loyal. Is it not
Oh,
L?
it's L.
It is L. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like you can't really blame anyone for how they behave in that setting.
Oh, no, you can't. Even, I mean, you feel bad for them because, like, you would be so afraid if you started having these feelings that went
Oh
against
yeah.
everything you had believed in. Um, and even like, I feel like DAD or Richard is like, he knows that they're smart and he wants them to be genius, but he also at the still time, like, same time, like, underestimates all of them
Oh yeah.
and what they're capable
No,
of.
I mean it's like some people will talk to me about inspection as, is this a like a religious story, like the separation of men and women and stuff like that, in like a church or a temple or a church or whatever? Is this, it, it, often the stories are about, or the questions are about the kids, but to me this is 100% a mad scientist story. 100%. Like this is like, what are you guys doing? You guys are
Yeah.
you guys believe that genius is distracted by either the opposite sex or anything amorous, or you're trying to get laid or make out or horniness, whatever you want to call it, courtship, whatever you want to call it, and they try to stamp that out by not giving them the knowledge that what they might be attracted to exists. So it's like if I didn't spend so much time trying to have a freaking girlfriend, would I be studying science instead? Would I discover a new planet? And that's the premise of what they're doing.
Yeah. Is he just blind though to like same-sex couples? Like how does that play into
So
this concept?
a couple things to remember. Like the very first question I was ever asked, and it was a great question, and it was absolutely horrifying. It was for Rue Morgue. The very first question I got for inspection and interview was, "Are you worried of the community's response to the heteronormativity of the characters in this book?" And I was like, "Oh shit, this isn't Bird Box anymore." I was in a coffee shop and I'm like on a cell phone and I'm like, I'm doing an interview for inspection, and it was on the cover of Rue Morgue. I mean, this was a big moment for me. Did you know that inspection? Did you know that it was on the cover?
I don't think I knew that.
Oh
No.
yeah, dude. The inspection. No, it's the cover. Like the cover is an illustration of like split down the middle, a man and woman, and like it's
Oh,
yeah. This it's like the cover. It's not just like Josh Malerman's inspection, which would also be amazing. It's the cover story. And
yeah. So big deal.
yes,
Like
and
huge.
that was the first question, and I was like, oh shit, I don't know what to say right now. I don't know. I don't know what to say right now. And a couple things to remember. One, I wrote it in '07. So keep that in mind. Number two, originally the kids were 14, and
Okay.
I intentionally lowered their age to just try to avoid any sex. Because
Yeah.
the book, the story to me wasn't about, I didn't want it to, because if they were like teenagers, I mean, literally every scene would be like horniness. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
every scene would be them trying to sneak and make out and whatever. And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's not, this book is about Richard and Marilyn and their insane experiment. Okay. That includes their insane oversights, which, yeah, stuff like that. Like Richard would assume if I'm not showing them or if they have no example of coupling in any form at all, they're not going to. But no, in reality, of course, the boys would be attracted to each other, and certain ones would, certain wouldn't. Maybe all of them would if that's all they knew was each other.
That's kind of what I was wondering or
Right.
thinking too. Yeah.
They
If they
literally
all
only
would
oh,
be.
if you grew up in a world where literally only males existed, yes, you would end up being attracted to some males and not to others, even if in a world where there were also women, you weren't.
Well, and I think Kay kind of hints at that when she's talking about drawing Jay and like how much she enjoyed drawing her. It's like she's like kind of picked up on like the beauty of like her fellow like letter girls while she like
Yeah,
draws them and stuff, which is really, I mean, it's neat to see. It makes it even sadder when you kind of realize that she's no longer with them, but
yeah, yeah. It's one fun sort of moment was to imagine if you had never heard of a woman before, and then
yeah.
never heard of it, and you were raised in a sort of, I mean, obviously militant, but I'm just saying, you imagine all the boys have shorter haircuts and this and that, you're young, that kind of thing because of Richard. Now imagine at the window this soft skin, longer hair, maybe longer nail. I mean, it would look like a fucking vampire.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't even like it would be like a vampire was at the window. It would look like an alien. And like that was when getting closer and closer to that scene, I was so excited to write that scene of it's like, what is that in the window? It's like a monster. No, that's actually just a girl.
Yeah, it's just a girl.
Yeah, and you've never seen one before.
I like that scene too because it feels like Kay is like almost to the point of frustration with him. Like she's like, if you don't let me in, like it's freezing. Like she's trying to help everyone out, and he's like kind of chickening out. He's like, I don't know if I should let you in, and I don't like in that moment. I'm curious if it's like he's afraid, but also does a part of him know like if I let this thing that's at my window in, like is my world just completely gonna change?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it's like it's almost like even before then, there's no turning back or something. Like you said, already interested in like the truth of things and stuff. It's already like he's already strapped in. He's already on that path or something. So
Yeah.
her arrival and needs the book, which I would love to read. I would love to read a Lawrence Luxley book, man. There's got to be so bad. The three boys went into the woods, champions. You know what I mean? I'm like, really? I mean, like, oh boy. And the movies, like, like,
Oh,
what
God.
movies were they showing them?
I
What
don't
were
know.
the? Was it
I
like,
don't. They're in my head, they're like those movies that they would show in like the 1950s, like after school. Like they're just
yes,
very G-rated, vanilla,
totally. The
neutral
most like a
movie.
Hardy Boy, like the most G-rated, like two boys sitting on a log saying how wonderful their dads are,
What
or dad is.
I love how like just over it too, both of the authors are like Lawrence Luxley
Yeah.
Warren is just he's over it. Judith Nancy, she's done. Like she's tired of it. She's just drunk. Like they're just so over it.
So over it, man. And it's fun to think that like the entire staff is populated with like convicts.
Yeah.
You know, like when you think of that too, and how Marilyn talks about like the reserve group, like
Yeah,
yeah, we should talk about like some other like that made the final, right? Like some
I
reserve
think so.
of like, we'll have to call in like, and you're like, oh God, what have those guys been doing this whole time? There are these like these ex-cons are all like paid to just sit around and wait to like come in and like what, get rid of all the kids once they know, once the experiment's ruined, once they're spoiled rotten.
Well, and that's like one of the things that I was curious about is when they read Needs and Richard realizes it, or sorry, when he's writing Needs and he's like, what's going to happen to them like once they all know this? And he like Warren ultimately decides like they just need to know the truth. Like, is there a possibility that Richard just sends them all to the corner? Like he just gets rid of them all and
Yeah, I
starts
think so.
again?
I think so. Yeah, I think that Richard, yes, I think that him and Marilyn would have abandoned. Well, I can't remember exactly where Marilyn stood at the very end, but well, I know where she stood at the very end, but I can't remember exactly where she would have stood on that. But I mean, she was just as delusional and crazy as him. I mean, they did this together.
She, for some reason, she almost seems worse to me than he
Right.
does.
Right.
She definitely seems smarter than he does to me too, and I don't know why that is.
Because he seems like he's coming from like this some like emotional rage
Yeah,
or
he just seems so
yeah,
mad.
he's like mad like he feels like his life was ruined or his chance at greatness or genius or breakthrough was ruined because he was distracted by Marilyn. I mean, in a
Fucking
weird
Marilyn.
inspection is like an enormous argument that a couple is having.
Yeah, it really is.
They even
I
sleep in separate towers.
I forgot about.
And like they blame each other for like ruining their genius. It's like dark intellectual thinking, the two of them.
Well, even when they're like you're like talking about her backstory and she just like hates all of her friends because they're
Oh yeah.
married and like seeing people
You know
and
what
she
she
just looks
reminds me of?
down upon them. Who?
Judy. It's like Doug and Judy in the house
Oh
washing.
yeah.
Yeah, Marilyn and
Yeah.
Judy would like either have like just like icily eyed each other across a coffee shop or murdered someone together or something like that, and covered it
Yeah,
together. Yeah.
definitely. But they would have eventually all four turned on each other.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There's
Yeah.
no there's no happy ending there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like there's two parts in the book where Richard just completely glosses over details that ends up burning him. Like the first is when he overhears the boys talking about needs, but he thinks
Yeah.
that they're saying Lawrence when they're not. And then he
Yeah, at the
realizes like, oh
pool, like when
shit.
they're swimming.
Yeah, when they're
Yeah.
swimming. And then the other is like he's like telling Marilyn about J and he thinks B. And he's like, well, he used girls. And Marilyn's like, nope, it doesn't say girls anywhere in this book. And you can almost like hear the frustration in her voice of like, how did you not realize that someone else has spoken to him other than B?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, totally. Right. Wow. Yeah, there's that. Oh, the Burt report.
Oh, I love the Burt report.
Yeah, the Burt reports are like that's where I could see like Burt could have talked more about like same sex and stuff like that. Like Burt could have, can't remember her Barbara?
Yeah, I think Barbara.
Yeah. she could have, if there's a spot, and before when I said I wrote it in '07, that doesn't mean that like I wrote it before I was in like aware of of something like this, Jesus. But I do think if you had the idea now, it would be more glaring to me not to address it in any
Yeah.
form. But at the time, it felt, I don't want to say fable-ish, but kind of. It was like, let's separate the boys and girls. Like, it was just like a very, like, root idea, very simple idea with very dark philosophy and intellectualizing on top of that.
Yeah.
Now, I think I would keep the book exactly the same, but I maybe would have I would have Barbara Burt mention something to the effect of, and be aware when they become, sexually of age, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
There would be some mention of that. I don't think does is there one mention?
I don't I
I
don't
don't
think
think so.
so.
So I think I wouldn't necessarily, I'm not necessarily saying like, oh, in today's world you should write. No, no, no. I wouldn't do it any different, but I would have Bert included in the report, like a warning, bringing it up, that kind of thing.
Is I mean, I don't I'm like Bert seems awful in her own right too. Like to some extent she's like kind of helping this move along, but she does seem like the more I don't want to say rational, but like logical one of the group.
Yeah,
Like,
for
am I
sure.
supposed to view her that way?
Yeah, except if I'm not mistaken, I have the book right here. Hold on, because this is, yeah, that letter at the end.
Oh yeah, and it ties back to tenants, right?
Yeah, so essentially the book ends. I mean, this is a major, well, it's kind of a spoiler, with her writing like another cult leader. Like, hey, I have experience in this field. I
She's
mean,
got to survive. She's got to have a
that's
job.
that's what's she doing in Wyoming? Barbara Bird, MD, 65 West Collier Street, Laramie, Wyoming. What's she doing way over there? She like bolted.
She she doesn't live at the tower in the tower.
No, right? I don't think so, right?
I don't think she does. No.
Um, what about that sequence where, and this is my favorite thread of the book, is that it's also was a chance to like write about an author that was being like huh. I was gonna say ultimately like subversive, right? By what he does. But
Yeah.
to get into the position where he's subversive, he had to like do some seriously hardcore, awful complying first. Like
Yeah.
for him to agree to do this. And there's those scenes of him being like with the hip other writers and he's good and da da da. And then it's like, and then he gets this offer that's like, oh shit. And you're like, go and do
Yeah.
this for like 15 years, and then I'm like set for the rest of my life. And you're like, oh man, you suck.
He sucks.
He sucks.
Yeah.
But in the course of being there, he never, whatever he, even his self-hatred, hatred for the world, everything, did not kill that spirit in him. That's that punk spirit in him that's like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm writing the book.
It's interesting that you say that because I don't see him as having like a punk spirit when I'm reading it
Huh.
because he seems so like he's like talking about their friend group and like he seems like he thinks he's better than like the other writers in that group.
Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
he kind of just seems like an asshole.
Oh, he's a total ass.
And like a
Yeah,
part of me is
Christian. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. My agent, Kristen, was like, this is the most unlikable character you've
He's
ever written.
terrible.
Yeah, he's
Well, and
terrible.
a part of me is like, is it so egregious what's happening here that he has to write needs and tell the truth? Or is he just really experiencing like a character arc as a person? Or is it both?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know that answer. I think that he's there's another side that's like, does this guy just is he just like bored? Not bored, but I gotta get the fuck out of here kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here. Like I gotta blow this whole thing up. But I don't know, man. I mean at the end he's kind of adopted like 20 kids, like 40 kids or something.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that too. Like, does he just keep them and leave things
Yeah.
when this ends? See their guardian now?
I love this sort of like fantastical image of him like walking with like 40 kids towards Milwaukee at the end?
I know they're too big for this to happen, but in my head, they're like hanging off of him like little kids would
Right.
too.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what there's and that's exactly what I was saying. There's something strangely fable-ish about this book, and maybe that connects somehow with Unbury Carol too. There's something, I don't know what it is, for as cold as the book is, and in ludicrous as the premise is, and unlikely, and all the holes in Richard's thinking, it still has this like fairy tale vibe.
Yeah. Well, I when I was reading it, there's this one part where they're like, we have to find Warren before he tells the world about what we're doing here. And I was like, oh, I completely forgot that there's like a world outside of
Yeah,
the one that
exactly.
I'm in.
Yeah. So in the documentary, I don't know if I already told you this, but I'm saying it here. In the documentary, when he gets out of the cell,
Yeah.
right? And it tells for the he's like he finally gets out, and then he's like running and running in the book. He's like running, and he goes like down this like and then down this sort of like dirt tunnel, and he like goes. He's like, "Whoa, what is this?" And it's like a plexiglass wall separating this tunnel, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Whoa, what is this?" And it's like, but it's like broken open or whatever. And then he like keeps running, and then he goes up these steps, and you're on floor one of the boys' tower. So in It Tolls for Thee, he was kept in Quailfield must have bought those towers.
So is it after inspection then, or
It's
is it
after
pre?
inspection.
Yeah.
It's after inspection. And they must have bought those two towers. And the cell that he was in was in the basement of the boys' tower from inspection. Isn't that
Do
fun?
you that's very fun. Do you think that Richard's body is still in that on that floor when
Yeah,
they
I think so. Way on the top. Yeah, way up there. Yeah. That was like a super fun thing to write too. Look what I just happen to have still lying around. Inspection.
it also works well for inspection for some reason, a magnifying glass does.
Yeah. I mean, again, even the inspectors, there's a sense of like, I keep saying fairy tale, it's not the right phrase, but there's just some sort of like, you almost imagine if you read this as a kid, you'd be like, ew, like the evil inspectors and the dogs. And
The dogs,
yeah,
yeah.
there's like something very, I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I will say this though. I hope to God I write 20 more books as difficult to classify or whatever the phrase might be. Because like Inspection's a weird book.
Yeah, it is.
You know what I mean? It's not like about vampires or witches I mean it's like this is a weird book, man. And
Yeah.
and it's one of the things I love about Del Rey is after Unbury Carol, which was its own odd thing, I had showed them a few ideas and they loved this one. And I'm like, wow, okay.
I think that we talked a little bit about this in Barry Carroll, but I noticed that inspection, I feel like a lot of your books have a unique format and that they use like italics a lot, or you'll have like breakout chapters where you're hearing from a different voice. I mean, this is hard for me to ask in a way that's probably gonna make sense, so I hope you bear with me. But like when you're writing that, does that help you as a writer to break it up like that?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yep. Like just like if you were playing in a band or something, and you're like, let's go to a bridge,
Yeah.
or like we've been vamping on this corridor. There's too many verses in a row. Or there's other books like Bird Box, which feel like, no, let's just keep doing another verse. Let's go, let's go. It's the same dirge or the same, 17-minute song or one side of an album song or something. Bird Box, where you're like, no, don't. And I feel like Incidents is like that too. Like, don't,
Yeah.
like I understand there's the moments where uh Ursula and Russ are like giving their sort of like monologues or thoughts, but for the most part it feels like one mood, where Inspection
Yeah.
is like, and Carol is definitely all over, like we were talking about before, like vignettes. I think that it's not only, yeah, it totally breaks it up. It's fun as hell. It's refreshing
Yeah.
as like a writer. And once you do it once in a book, there's a sense of like, well, anything goes now. In the same way that if you don't follow a pattern in your career, once you put out like a book like Inspection, well, shit, man, if you put out Inspection, anything goes now. Like,
Yeah.
Duel on the Cape. I mean, anything like, or as something as straight as like Still Life or Bird Box. I mean, Bird Box isn't straight, but you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
the same thing in the career, you could say inside of just a singular book, right?
Yeah.
Like, does it have to follow a uniformity? And you're like, no.
But even the ones that don't have those breakouts, like incidents, you still use like a unique format with them. I mean, there's no quotation
Well, that's
marks
true.
in incident,
Both of those are well, the rough draft of Bird Box was the most crazy thing ever. But
just
yeah,
all the italics.
yes, the
Yeah.
entire and twice as long and all that's 14 housemates and all that stuff. Yeah.
Um, there is this one part where Warren's with I think I don't know if you get, I'm sure you get their full names, but he's in the copy room and they're showing him like how to use the printer.
Oh yeah.
And there's this one part where everything's italicized, where it's like no one's mentioning like the fact that we're keeping these 24 boys like separated from women and how fucking insane that is.
Yeah.
It is in that moment, is that Warren speaking to us or is that you speaking
Yeah,
to
that's Warren.
us?
That's
Okay.
Warren. Yeah.
Okay.
That's Warren thinking like, what the fuck are we doing, man? Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that scene where he's like, "Oh, how does the printer work? I'm just curious, been down here for a long time." And they're like, "Oh, what's that one guy's name? Gordon?"
Oh yeah, Gordon, like Richard's
Oh,
like right-hand
that's
man.
fucking. There's a guy that's not an ex-con, I don't think. Maybe he should,
No.
but he's not. Right. That guy's just a soulless business dude kind of
I
guy.
don't think it ever says this, but he feels almost like ex-military or something to me, or
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
ex-police or just some kind of
Wow.
like,
The whole book kind of feels a little like what you're describing right
yeah,
there. Yeah, like there's some vibe of that, these abandoned tower. How do they know about these and how do they buy these? And
yeah.
does inspection, is there a sequence, or did I think of this after, where Richard and Marilyn go to hospitals to like buy the kids?
No, it's just a reference like that they bought them, but it doesn't explain like how.
Yeah, because I think I wrote scenes where they did.
Yeah.
Wait, so that's not in there?
No.
Oh yeah, no, I wrote a scene where Richard was like crouched like behind like a woman like woke up in bed and he was like kind of like beside like the chair. He's like, okay, I'm like ready, and she's like, shit, I don't know if I still want to do this. And that's not in there.
Uh-uh.
Wow, yeah. Maybe that should be. That's freaky.
That is really freaky.
That's freaky. I don't know why I took that out. Maybe I don't know. Allison has told me that she loves the rough draft of Inspection because like as I told you, I gutted like a third of it, and none of that was action. So that was all philosophy, all thinking, all philosophy on it, da da da. And that doesn't mean for a listener or something, that doesn't mean that I turn this into like a straight commercial thriller, because that's definitely not what happened.
No.
But it felt to me like I had already said this, so why say it again, which we've talked about before, is often what the rewrite does is like you realize I'm repeating myself. I've
Yeah.
said this already. And sometimes you want to leave it, and sometimes you don't. The author Gertrude Stein tried, this is so brilliant. Fucking, I read this book, tried to imitate like cubism
Oh.
in a painting, but in her book. So how to do that, instead of having like the blue like squares of cubism, let it out, right? She copy and pasted paragraphs from her book over and over. And as you went through, the same paragraph would come, but now it felt a little different because you knew more. And then, you know what I mean? It was like
Yeah.
experimental like writing.
That's really cool.
I know, that's awesome,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think it's okay to like say to yourself, like, it's okay to repeat yourself. Like, or have a scene like an Igorov that goes on too long, or Ghoul in the Cape, like just a flight of fancy philosophizing. Just let him go. Let him go. Everything doesn't have to serve the plot.
Yeah.
I will say the third that I removed from Inspection wasn't just trying to serve the plot, meaning I wasn't just trying to make a thriller, but I am curious what Allison read. I don't remember what the other third was. And I do wonder if is there anything about sexuality in there? Is there anything like, is there just a lot more like thoughts on the subject or something?
Yeah. I'm curious too.
Yeah. And
Um,
that's again, that's before K. So I mean, we're
yeah.
talking like a ton of stuff in the Boys Tower.
The part where I mean, it's possible I missed this, but there's that part where they're talking and you find out that they've captured Jay's dad. Like he's
Oh
also been
yeah.
spying on everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think this is just happening more and they just don't catch these parents like spying on people?
I like that thought. I don't know. I don't know, but I love that idea. That's fun.
Yeah.
And also it's like, oh, it's so sad. Like
It's so sad.
it's like so what about the story about that one mom when they were like babies that comes like
Yeah.
running come to the tower?
I
So
was going to ask you about that. So how old are they supposed to be when A sees F's mom? Because they seem like they're like toddlers.
yeah, even less. I think they're like 1.5 or 2, or is that a toddler? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
They're like tiny. Yeah.
Did
And A was sent to the corner for that.
did you get any pushback from Del Rey about like we can't kill children this small?
They have to be a certain height.
They
You have
have
to be
to,
at least you have to be at least this tall to be killed in a novel.
well, you just don't see it a lot. You don't see children getting murdered in books very often.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. This book is dark and it's like it's in the weirdest way. God, I want to read this book again. I kind of want to read it right now. Like Inspection. Hi, I haven't seen you in a minute. The very first thing after I said Inspection. Hi, I opened it and says artist my ass, Warren said.
He's so grumpy.
Yeah, no, I imagine him even smelling weird, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he smells like stale.
Yeah, like more. And then like in the cafeteria, he's starting to lose his mind. The boys are talking about it, and L's like, "Oh, I think it's a wonderful idea." D thinks, and D's like, "Oh my God," you know. Yeah. Oh, those giant heads, as you know,
Yeah,
how awesome, right? Of what
they're
Alex
great.
did. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable, man. It's like every time I go in that room, I see these like giant for listeners for a theatrical reading. Allison made these geez, I don't even know what to say, like giant paper mache or plaster heads of the alphabet boys.
They're huge too.
Huge. And that's what the actors wore during the theatrical reading as they were playing those characters. Those four heads are on a bookshelf in our like living room. And it's the greatest thing for me. Like
They're so cool.
they're so cool, man. And it like for me to like go through like to walk through the living room and see that it's like read another book and not just read another book, get I don't want to say get weird, but whatever inspection is, find that spot. It's a great spot where there's no thinking of trends, no thinking of bestseller, no thinking of gosh, like tropes at all. Like what trope is this? Mad
Yeah.
scientist, I guess.
But not even really
Not
that.
even, but
No. And I think that it would have been easy for a book like Inspection to be like a straightforward thriller or like a straightforward dystopian, but it's not.
right.
I mean, even the like even when it's talking about like A going to the corner, it's not overly violent. I mean, you know it is, but it's not. The violence doesn't really happen until like the very last portion of the book. And even then
And it
it's not.
gets
But it's
and then
like
the
a few
book,
pages. I mean, it does
then the
like
book
shit
like
just pops off at that
it
point.
just
But
turns red. The book turns red. Yeah.
yeah,
That whole sequence of like MOM thinking, I think it's MOM thinking like how they had the math down perfectly as
yeah.
the header and it's like boop, 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 boop. And they're like because they raise these genius lunatics.
My favorite part is when they're like, everyone's dead but Richard, and they're like, inspection. And then they like go get him and lock him in that room.
Yeah.
Just like little terrors.
Does it say, I hope it says this. Does it say because it used to end with this? Does it say that like either years later somebody found or whatever like a skeleton with like a magnifying glass
Yeah,
and that's in there?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Why the decision to not kill him?
And that just felt it just I guess Maryland's the same thing as him, but we spent so much time with Richard. I felt, or I did originally. I felt that it was also by the way, he wears like a thriller jacket essentially. He's wearing like a red skin tight leather jacket and like red leather pants. Like what the hell is he? Is it like this
I
is like
didn't I
is
didn't
this
think
like a
about
cult?
that when I
This is a cult book. That's what it is, right? It's a fucking cult. But like they don't nobody knows they're in the cult except for Richard, like that nobody even knows.
this completely changes how I picture him now because I don't think
No,
I
right.
picked up on that.
He's walking around like dressed like Prince. And while separating boys from women,
This,
this is the
I
weirdest book.
I don't remember this, so part of me is like, are you making this up to mess with me right now?
This is like I feel like Ruby Jean Jensen would love this book. She would she'd be like, now we're talking.
What
Now we're
drug
talking.
is inspection?
What'd you say?
What drug is inspection?
Yeah. Oh, whoa. What drug is inspection? Oof. Yeah, and I don't know if it's a great one. It's weird. Like you take it, and the next day you're like, okay, I'm glad I took it, but not again. That was that. I'm gonna, be pious now. Yeah, but I had a landlady, or Jesus, a landlady. She owned the house. I wrote, I think, 6 or 7 books in this house that Derek, the drummer, now owns. Him and his fiance or his wife. And June, the homeowner, read every book that I wrote in the house, and that was Bird Box, Bring Me the Map, Decorum at the Deathbed, Inspection, Goblin. Not, I didn't read all of Goblin, but a part of Goblin. It was like 5, 6 books or something. And she read Bird Box, and she told me that it was her least. She was like, "This one's boring to me," and I was like, "Wow, really?" But I'm the only other person that had read it at that point in the world. And she was like, "Yeah, this one." She goes, "It's the house, then it's the river, it's the house, it's the river." She goes, "But that book Inspection is so like philosophically like rich and that so this is a very encouraging sort of like moment that I had with her." And she brought up the religious stuff and you could see this as like a commentary on religion or society, like, that kind of thing, which I hadn't thought of. I just wasn't thinking that way at all. But it was very encouraging because here was like a first reader, literally a first reader that was saying like, yo, I'm relating to this like far out philosophy stuff. And,
Yeah,
and the other book that was definitely more paced or thrillery, she thought was boring.
that's
And
interesting.
yeah, and I that didn't change my opinion of Bird Box. I love them both.
Yeah.
I did note that. I'm like, okay, shit, man. You like inspection. All right, well, fuck it. Let's get weird.
Do they keep their first initial, but they just add to it? Like,
How did she do it? Yeah, I would like F. Scott Fitzgerald. Like F. Scott Fitzgerald. F. Scott Fitzgerald was one of the
there you
alphabet
go.
boys. J.R.R. Tolkien really, he kind of like, he was really screwed up. He kept like a bunch of initials.
Yeah, he had a lot of
Yeah.
trauma from it. Did you how did you assign each of them their alphabet letter?
I definitely like cared. I mean, it almost seems too right that Q invented God, right?
Yeah.
Like Q question, like right, like like Q is like a mystical letter, right?
Yeah.
And D almost feels like the right letter to be like whatever, and
Yeah.
B would be like your fun friend, but also like strong, like the head of the like near the head of the alphabet. A's got to be sacrificed, right? A's got to
Yeah.
go right. Yeah, and Z would be a loon like Z maybe. Well, isn't that what happens? A and Z on the boys' side?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he makes a point to say they're bookends.
No. What about when I think he sees C, like he
Yeah, with the pots and pans.
yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, what a TV series that would be.
Yeah, it would.
Oh my God, it would be great. People would be talking about that weird ass fucking show where the lunatic tried to separate the boys and the girls.
He's out measuring them to see if they're tall enough to kill because
Yeah, damn it. Gotta give it
just a
another
few more
month.
inches.
That's actually like a fun short story idea. You have to be this height to be killed. And then like the person's waiting for somebody to reach that height. And we're like, something's gotta like somebody save him before he reaches that height. That's fun.
I
Something
like
fun,
that. It's dark.
something fun is in there.
Yeah. Not fun for the person that's being
No.
measured, but fun for us. Um, it's wild to me when I'm reading how long Kay watches Jay before she like puts anything
Oh,
to action. I think it's a year.
yeah.
Like, is she just in that year gathering information? Is she
Yeah.
like buying time?
Like
Okay.
you said, she's way smarter. Like, or I guess you didn't say that. You said Marilyn's smarter, but she's way like I don't think Jay would not have waited a year.
No.
Yeah, Jay would have maybe gone home the first night and then come back the second, and the second night would have been like knocking or trying to make contact. This is also, remember, Kay is like a genius, like artist.
Yeah.
So there's some sense of like observational skills and this kind of thing. So for her to like sit back and watch is actually I don't know. I don't know. It makes sense. A year is a bit of a long time, but also not really to them. I don't know what a year is to them.
No, I was kind of curious, like how she kept track of time too. I mean, I know they have clocks, but like, do they have calendars within
I
the
mean, there are
tower
so many
keeping?
questions, right? Like, do they like what's it called? Mr. Tree? Is that where they think they're
Yeah, Mr. Tree.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
I feel so bad when I'm reading for them because they're like, we come from these trees. And Richard's like, you sure do. You come from those trees out there.
come from those trees, boys. Now cure cancer. In another weird way, and he's definitely not noble in any way imaginable, but aren't you kind of curious, like, would it have worked?
I am, but like, what happens to them? Like, he keeps them in this world until they're adults and then they stay there too?
Yeah, that's what I think Barbara Burton, is kind of
Yeah.
the fuck is going on, And then at some point, Warren would no longer be needed. But what does that mean? That means that at that point they kill him.
Yeah.
What does he think? He's like, oh, and then after 15 years, I'll just like move on
Get
with
out of
my
here.
money.
Um,
Um, yeah, I don't know.
well, she does make that point. Barbara makes that point to them in the report. That's like, would you rather have a genius scientist or someone that you could just drop into the world that you'd been denied and they fit in? And so I do think that that's what she's hinting at. But
Right.
I mean, can you imagine like you go to a bar and there's this person there that's like never met
Oh yeah,
anyone from
but
outside their bubble?
maybe like holy shit, brilliant with mathematics and with science and with curing disease. And so
Yeah.
again, I don't think Richard's out to like cure Parkinson's. I really don't. But even though he would say that he is, I think he's out to like control an experiment or to control lives because he felt like he didn't have control of his own. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting idea. Someone that a human mind, not AI, like a human mind completely devoid of distraction. What might it do? I don't know. It's an interesting, this
Yeah.
this guy was crazy enough to attempt that, or this guy and this girl. Like there's that scene of them in that restaurant discussing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's also that part where he's talking about like like maybe they can prolong mortality because they don't have anyone to distract them. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, that's great, but also like how lonely would that be if you're just like by yourself in the silo?
Right.
Like what purpose do you have at that point?
Right. They're again completely blinded by power
Yeah.
and their own, my God. I mean, I feel like Barbara Burt's like almost like a terrible psychoanalyst in hindsight, Like
Yeah.
I would be like, if I was their guy that was hired, I'd be like, you both need to go to jail. Now, you should handcuff each other to radiators, and then I'll call the police for you. But you first need to tell all the ex-cons to bury their guns. I mean, it really is like a cult, isn't it? It's like a cult story,
Yeah.
but like a weird, like fractaled version of a cult story.
Do you think that they pick the ex-cons because they don't like have a moral compass or because they're
That's a
like
that's a great
they
question.
need jobs?
No, no, no. That's a great question. I think the answer is both, but I think
Yeah.
at the time I wrote it, I was probably more likely thinking the former. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Because no one seems to care about what's going on with these poor kids.
No, yeah, they don't. Yeah, like what about the reserve guys? Like that. Like think about those guys. Like every now and then I think about what does that mean? What are they doing out there? Are they
They're
paying?
just on the JV team. They're
Like right, they're like out in like some like shed for like 11 years, just like hanging out. Just I imagine them in inspector uniforms, like just
yeah.
hanging out, like unshaven, drinking, playing pool, just waiting for that call. That's like the kids found out we need you to exterminate all of them. I mean, that's really what they're waiting for,
Yeah.
and they get
Yeah, they
paid
are.
like hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that. But what can they even spend it on? See, that's the craziest thing about like Warren. Like, what kind of thing is that to agree to? Like an ex-con or like an ex-con, that sounds like yeah, an ex-con. That sounds like my mom said when I was a kid. Like, what does Warren have to like? He's like essentially he's saying, okay, I'll give up 15 years of my life to be part of this lunatic experiment, and I walk out of here like so like wealthy beyond my dreams, and I'll just like spend the next, the rest of my life and like on a beach or something. Is that what Warren's thinking?
I guess, but like there's no way that they'd let him just walk away from this. I don't
Right.
think they let anyone walk away from it.
I'm gonna open to a random page. Artist my ass. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, again, it was him. The writing gangsters would lynch you, he said. I keep opening up to Warren stuff. And does it have a happy ending? Be asked. But her sisters didn't answer. Oh yeah. But Kay saw it first, the one tree, the different treetop, the spire. She stopped,
Yeah.
but B spoke first. Oh wow, that's it. That's it, Kay echoed. Well, it's definitely not a bald treetop, Q said. It's a spire. Like the one on the turret, B said. Exactly the same, Q said. Come on, B. B said. We don't have much time. How much? Kay asked. B checked her watch. 5 minutes? Really? If we want to be safe, yeah? Kay advanced first. B and Q followed. Q tapped B on the shoulder. I don't know if this is a good idea. Yeah, that's to me, again, that was all written after Allison was like, yo, tell their story. Yeah, Allison has done that a few times. And Allison has just suggested a few things through the years where it's like, shit, okay, yeah, and like change, but none with a bigger like effect than that inspection one. That literally changed everything.
Um, there like why do you think Kay is so angry about this compared to Jay? Because even when she tells him about it, he just doesn't seem as like upset as
I
what
think
you're
that
expecting.
she's a little closer to like the boy D.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She's a little more closer in spirit that way. Like
Okay.
she's right. She is more like she's not as interested in being like obedient. She's not that as interested in being like you said before, and I thought that was so brilliant. The whole idea that Jay is trying to play nice and play along and be obedient, but also wants to know the truth. That whole balance. I feel like she's more like wants to know the truth.
Yeah.
And I think yeah. So I would put her like we can worry about playing nice later. What's going on here?
Well, and that's, I mean, it makes it even more frustrating when Jay like gives her up basically to
Oh,
when they're
oh
playing
no, I
boats.
forgot about that
Yeah,
scene.
it's terrible.
Oh no,
He's like, okay, well, if you promise you're not going to do anything to her. And I was like,
oh
why would you
no,
believe him?
nothing, Jay. No, in a Thriller outfit, like in this like Michael Jackson Thriller jacket. What is going on? And like and Marilyn wears the same in white. She's like what are they rock stars? Okay, I
I
can't.
think that you've made this up because I don't remember this at all.
Wait, is he wearing like all red leather? Am I wrong? Maybe that was a rough draft. Is he
Why
not?
would he be wearing?
Is it Richard always?
I'm gonna look it up right now because I don't
Yeah.
remember this.
Hold on. And then Marilyn's wearing like white leather.
Like I feel like you're inventing lore for these characters that just doesn't
You're probably right.
because that makes it even stranger. Like I wouldn't trust anyone talking to me in a thriller jacket.
Well, it's like a red leather something or a red like oh yeah. It's like a red like Sergeant Pepper outfit or something.
Yeah, he has leather gloves on.
Yeah, he has leather gloves and he's wearing like a red like British military. What is he, an English Bobby? Like what does this guy do? What is he even what is this guy? What is this guy? Ringo Starr? Like what's he doing? And
I
then Marilyn's like way the hell smarter than him, but also do wear dress like that.
Why are they such bad dressers? Or are they just
Yeah. Or really, really good dressers. I just want to point out that might be the case.
I can just picture him like sitting playing boats in this like red leather
Oh,
outfit with a drink in his hand because he seems like he's like just constantly drinking.
yeah. Like he's kind of saying like, what is it, scotch or whiskey? I don't even
I
remember.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I mean now I'm just the image of them is completely changed now that I'm picturing them in
Yeah.
these news for you.
It's not good.
No, you're under arrest.
I have to include that in the edit because that is brilliant.
Thank you.
I have some bad news for you. You're under arrest. Like inspection means a lot to me. It it's hard to explain in terms of like as a writer or something. It's like it would be like if you were a painter and you had done things, you had tried many different things, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, you tried something that was outside of yourself, maybe because it was written on the heels of something else. So I had already felt like artistically satisfied, right? I had finished a book. So then, oh, okay, well, then anything goes. And there was something super liberating about that. And I would even advise that to like a writer, like a new writer and a writer who's 50 books deep. I would advise when you finish a book, immediately write another one because the fact that you had finished that other one, you feel up to date, you feel satisfied, you feel like you said something, you did something right. So now's a chance to do something wrong. Now's
Yeah.
a chance to do something that's like do your craziest idea. Inspection is I'm making it sound way crazier than it is. It's actually a very sort of contained, as you said. I think a word that's slipped kind of through this is dystopian. Like the book is dystopian.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a unique twist on a dystopian because I feel like usually in dystopians you're in a, a world that's like not our own
Mhm.
or something has happened like Hunger Games or uh
Yeah,
but this isn't that. Like I mean I don't know what's happening outside, but it seems like at least when they capture Warren that our world is kind of still our world. It's just you have these two kind of mad people who have separated these children from each
yeah,
other and have like bought these towers. Um, and I think while you're reading Inspection, it doesn't feel as insane as it does to kind of talk about it.
right.
But I think that's why it's so fun to talk about.
Yeah, well, I think that some of my favorite books are like that, you know? It's like where it's like if I just explain this to like a friend, they'd be like, what are you reading?
Yeah,
But you're like, no, 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 it works. It works. Just no, just read the book. You know what I mean? Yeah, and this
yeah.
Google Cape is like that as well. Google Cape is like the ultimate example of that for me or something. But yeah,
And I feel like there's so much to take away from Inspection. I mean, so much of it rings true, I think, to even as an adult, like, of like, here's, like you're still kind of figuring things out and like growing as a person. And like, maybe you'll change, but that part of you was always kind of like lying in wait. And so, I mean, I think it's fun for us to talk about it, but it also is like, it's a pretty serious book and it's pretty dark. I mean, I would say it's like one of the darker books that you have.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
I also think though that like, and I think I've told you this before, but this book sounds the most like you to me when I'm reading it.
Like the actual language itself.
Yeah, like this and probably Ghoul in the Cape.
That's awesome. I'm looking right now. I'm like, do I talk this way? I I go, do I talk this way? And the very first line I look at says, "You want a sip? Do you want a sip of this drink?"
There is a line in the book that you have said to me word for word in real life.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
I'm sure Allison and whoa, right, the Burt Report. Okay, the Letter Girls are 11 years old now. Please take a moment to let that sink in. More than a decade has passed since you and Richard hatched the mutual plan for an unprecedented experiment in which boys and girls would be raised without the knowledge of each other's existence. Broad, bold, and some would certainly say controversial. Nevertheless, here we stand 11 years deep, and what have we learned? Wow. Oh, what did that say about Detroit? That's interesting. Now, while these words are cliches around, say, Detroit, they are most decidedly not here at the Parenthood. Oh, yeah, the Parenthood. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, this book, man. Wow. Wow. I mean, well, I'm not gonna look at that.
what are you?
This is amazing. Yeah, yeah. You know what? You know who blurbed this book, which is awesome to me because I'm a
Who?
huge fan of his, is Dathan Auerbach, pen
Really?
pal. Yeah,
I wonder.
a disturbing coming of age story set in a cruel and unthinkable place. Malerman has built a twisted sanctuary that shows us the horrors of conviction. Yeah, see, he knew it was a mad scientist story. I love Dathan Auerbach. Yeah, I love him. I love Batman and Pen Pal. And I wrote him after reading Batman because I read Pen Pal just because people said it was so scary. And I was like, this is as good as it gets. Like
Yeah.
Pen Pal is phenomenal. And I felt the same way about Ian Reed.
Yeah.
Where I was like, yeah. And another one is Andrew Michael Hurley with the Loney.
Yeah.
Or I was like, I don't know how to I don't know how to top it. Like this is Pen Pal is just so organically unsettling and so just wonderfully done. And so I read Badman was great. Did you read Badman also?
I have. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
it's
good.
great. It's fucking
Yeah.
great. And so I finally I'm like, hey, what to whoever asked me to blurb, I'm like, what's his email? And I like wrote him like, man, da 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 da. And he wrote me like, hey, I live in like I think it was like Florida or something. And he's like, if you come down, like if you're ever around, like let's hang out.
Um, Boats is like really the only, I mean, okay, I do agree with you that some parts of this feel like a fairy tale almost, but Boats is like the biggest part to me that feels otherworldly.
Yeah, like goblin-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a board game where like actual like water
Yeah.
going, and then it's like a lie detector test, and the more you everything that you say is true, your boat advances
Yeah.
through the stormy waters. But first of all, I would love no, I don't know if I would love to play that game. I was about to say I would love to play that game, and I'm like, I don't know actually. Like
No.
that'd be a horrifying game. That's like truth or dare, but like literal, like it's on display if what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't be very good at boats.
Yeah, boats is scary.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
want to play boat.
it would have to be for somebody with like nothing to hide.
Well, I mean, I guess for a while the boys have nothing to hide for the most part.
Right. Well, that's right. And you can even ask yourself, what is the point of the inspection? Like, you've got them divided. So is the inspection like, they're inspecting for to, I guess, fool them into thinking there's rots or V's or this or that. But the questionnaire and all this does it all leans towards like, have they discovered the girl's tower? A lot of it
Yeah.
does. A lot of
Yeah.
it does. Eventually, by now, by the time the book starts, I assume that's not true when they were like 6 or 7 or something. But now there's like questions that are like, da da da. That seem like, do they know, do they know, or have they come up with the existence of an opposite sex?
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, what are they inspecting for exactly? Is it to put the fear of like the parenthood into them? Yeah. But also, like, I think there's there's this fear of like, is the gig up? Is the experiment ruined? Are they all spoiled rotten?
Yeah. Well, and I think Jay picks up on that when he realizes that like it doesn't start when they tell you it started. Like the inspection starts the moment they walk into the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Oh my God, it's crazy.
What are the real life diseases that you had in mind when you were
Rots, bees.
yeah.
What's the other one? There's like a long
There's there's a few. There's rots and moldus, V's and
moldus.
placosaurs.
What was the last? Placosaurus. Oh,
Yeah, which
placosaurus
sounds
and
bad.
yeah, moldus and placosaurus sound especially bad.
Yeah, I don't want
I
placosaurs.
don't want placosaurus,
Mhm.
man. I had venereal diseases like in mine.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, but I didn't
Yeah,
know for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you don't want the V's.
yeah. You know, you don't want these. You don't want rots or placosaurs or everything good, Jay. No placosaurs, eh? No placosaur. I'm
No,
just
with his red leather gloves on.
yeah, man. Yeah. This book is good, man.
It is really good. It's one of my favorites.
Thank you. Yeah, more of this. More of this. Like, where the hell did this come from? That's what I say. Well, there are more of those. I mean, I just need to get them all out for crying out loud. But yeah.
Just a separate problem.
Say it again.
It's just like a separate problem that you have to figure
Yeah.
out.
I have to figure that out. I have to solve the how to get I think no, I know Incidents is the 13th book that's come out. Oh my God. I mean, that means that there's 28 more.
Well, and there's
And
20.
I'm telling you this sincerely. Like, I'm not, it's not like I picked the best 13.
No,
Like,
I'm sure you didn't.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, this one works now.
Well, and like it's not just like you have these 28 and then you're done. Like you're still writing more too.
Right.
And so then what do you
Gotta be a
do?
way.
Do you think that you'll ever write another book like Inspection?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I think the danger would be to look at it from, and I talk about this in watching Evil Dead. I think the danger would be to look at it finished and say, how do I do this again?
Mhm.
If you want to do this again, you have to start where you started with this again, right? So let's say you make an album and you're like, oh man, that album's great. And I want to make another one like that. Well, how did you make that? Don't then try to emulate the finished album. How did it start? Mark and I were sending each other like one verse, da da da, VMs to each other. So start from that same spot. And
Yeah.
then he came over and you started working on it together. So I think like there's a tendency to think if I want to do something of this nature again, then you're thinking of aping the final product or the final, I hate that word, the finished work of art.
Yeah.
But it didn't start. That's not how it was done. It was done by starting with like, oh, wow, this is a weird idea. And again, I had just finished a book, so why not do that weird idea? So
Yeah.
the answer to the question is yes, 100% I expect to do that. Yeah.
I just
Oh,
no, go ahead.
no, I just said I hope.
I hope so too. Um, do you, I mean, how the one part of this that I'm really curious about though is if you believe what Barbara Burt is saying is that whoever these boys and girls were going to become was just always then in them. It just hasn't come out yet. I mean, how much of that do you believe in as just like an individual?
Well, I feel like Allison's like an amazing example of someone that is like that. Like, I mean, her father is a pastor, and Allison is what do you call it? What do you call it? Where the universe is God, not there. Like, it's not Jesus or God. It's like the universe, like the energy of the universe is God. Like, what's the word?
I don't.
Pantheism.
Okay.
So Allison's like a pantheist, meaning like the universe, like not in a hippie way, like literally the universe, like existence is God. Like there isn't a singular intelligent being or something, right? But she
Yeah.
was raised by like a Lutheran pastor in Michigan's like Upper Peninsula, surrounded by hunters. Allison is not only vegan, it's not that she's vegan, she's like genius with animals, like
Yeah.
like brilliant with animals. So I have met in my own life a case of someone who like was raised a certain way and the real her came through no matter what she was surrounded by.
Yeah.
But I think in the case of inspection, it feels they're at such a disadvantage that I don't know if it's possible for nature to outdo nurture or how they were raised. I don't think that's possible in inspection. So I think she's
Yeah.
wrong. I guess I'm saying I think she's wrong.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she's wrong too. I mean, I get her point too because she's talking about like the men inventing God and everything, but it some of it just feels like a little bit of like that's just gonna happen. But I don't. Their personality seems so formed by like what they're seeing and like what they've not been able to see.
It
Um,
also feels like a bit of like guilt rationalization on Barbara.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
that's a great
oh,
point.
the real them is there either way. Yeah, well, I don't know about that. Not with the way you
Yeah.
guys raised them. Yeah.
I do like that in Needs, his final line is like they don't distract, like women inspire. Like
Yeah.
and it's nice too to hear that too, especially like coming from like Allison, like adding to the story and like adding Kay's story in.
Yeah.
Was that line part of your original draft for the
Oh
book?
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. That was like, yeah, that was like the whole thing where it was almost like the ultimate screw you to Richard,
Yeah.
and the ultimate like truth or something where it's like, love doesn't distract. It actually like these minds that you're trying to um engineer to be brilliant would even think more brilliantly if they were inspired by love, by making out, by horniness, by these like things. They'd be even more likely to succeed in what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's true too at the end because they all come together and like
Mhm.
come up with this grand plan to like not only rescue Jay, but also to kind of take over.
Really, the girls, man, the girls power like takes over and like, oh my God, it becomes like Evil Dead 2. It's like there's like blood, like the rooms may as well be red with blood. Like And like, oh my God, that book just explodes into violence.
I do appreciate how though it's so violent, but you do make a point to say that they're emotional about what's going on. Like they talk about
Yeah,
like taking the break and like crying, so they're not just like on a murder spree without kind of realizing what they're doing. But
yeah, yeah. And that's like coming of age, right? Like they
yeah,
like, slaughter the parenthood.
yeah. But
Yeah.
they're so young when they're doing it. It's
Like 11 or
impressive.
12, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 12, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. 12. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, right. Because it takes a year. She takes that year before. Yeah.
yeah. There's significance in girl J being sent to the corner and dying.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure. I don't know what
Yeah.
it is, but yes, meaning like 100%. Just like Kay has a friend Q, and so
Yeah.
does Lee. Because I was like I've actually thought about this before when writing books, is like in my own life, there's like the making the documentary, there were three Chris's involved. So why does every character in a book have like there's never a overlapping of names?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's passed my mind when I'm writing books. I'm like, yeah, but like Ryan is my younger brother and my manager's name. So
Yeah.
why don't can't I give these two different characters the same name, right? And so I felt that way with like she has a Q in her life, so does Jay. That doesn't mean these two Qs are anything alike, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was intentional, the double Q, and 100% intentional, where it was um almost like in an alternate reality, Jay, that was your fate.
That's what I was going to say because it seems like it hits him mentally when she's like, "Yeah, I saw Jay's grave." And he's like, "You saw Jay's grave?" And so it's when she's telling him about it, it's like almost like he can see himself because it's using his name.
Yeah, right. And that's the only thing
Yeah.
he would for the rest of his life would anytime he heard the letter J, he'd think of it that way. Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, oh yeah. No, I know in a
It's
weird way.
horrible.
It's actually it's dark.
It's really dark. And it doesn't look dark with the cover.
I
Like,
know. I know, man. I almost feel like it should be like the cover should be like a red leather boot. No, I'm just kidding. Like it should be like I don't know what it should be exactly, but
I do love this cover though.
no, me too. Yeah.
Does the hardcover have the light on inside the tower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like Jay up reading. Wow, inspection is fucking.
You could put out a series of children's books that were just Lawrence Luxley books.
I should use that pen name. Dun 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 dun.
I have one more disguise to show you.
Wow. Wait, where are these from?
I just bought them
From where? These are amazing.
from Amazon.
Oh.
I have this one.
Okay, that one let's just like pause long enough to get a good screenshot of.
I'm the captain of the ship. I was like, I'm gonna prank Josh, and I then you were like, you're up to something. I don't know what it is, but you
Yeah.
are.
Um,
There's that big scene when Richard's interrogating all the boys, and you do have that whole section italicized.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and it's really intense, and I like obviously the end is very violent, but like that part is really violent too.
No, totally, totally, because he's like slamming them against the wall. He's
Yeah.
like, oh, he's
Even
sitting
the
there.
guards seem
Oh,
uncomfortable with it.
yeah, like he's like punching them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot about that scene.
Yeah. Like
Wow.
even everyone else in the room, it seems like they're like, this is maybe too much. Like maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Right. Like as opposed to manufacturing a reality for these 26 boys and disposing of two of them. Richard, you shouldn't put your hands on them.
Maybe we shouldn't beat them up.
Oh yeah, that scene's sad because it's like the boys like it's like the loss of innocence or something. Like
Yeah.
AD's like literally like losing his mind, like physically assaulting them to get information out of them about
Yeah.
what they read. Wow.
And you can tell that they are like they're trying to be honest with them, but they start to realize like, well, I shouldn't be that honest. But it feels like in the moment, no matter what they tell him, he's not gonna care.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's Marilyn doing on the other side at that moment?
That's what do you think he clears any of this with her before he does it, or is he just like acting?
I think that if Marilyn came over to the boys' tower and watched him in the day to day, she'd be like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this?" You're like coming from a total place of like emotional because her side, when we first get there at least, feels a little more like organized or a little more
It
palatable.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they seem happier. Like the girls seem a bit
The girls
happier.
seem happier, smarter. In other words, the Maryland side, I don't want to say this because it's insane what they're doing. The Maryland side seems to be working.
Yeah, it does.
Like Kay's a genius artist, and the girls are insanely insightful. And for example, they find the boys' tower. So which side raised geniuses? Oh my God, did she ever say that? She should have said that.
She should have said that.
Ah, she should have.
You're gonna have to do a revised version with
Yeah, I'm gonna do a revive just for that one fucking line. Oh no, and Barbara mentioning same sex and stuff of that nature. But yeah.
there's also that scene where Kay sneaks into their bedroom. Do you remember that? And that she's they're asleep and she's spying on them, and that's when she
On
reads the court
who?
report.
Wait, who's asleep? Wait, and I don't remember this scene at all. Who's
I
Casey?
think I think they're asleep because like at one point Richard like wakes up and sits up and she has to like wait for him to go back to sleep.
Whoa, what
Let
page is
me
this on?
see if
Whoa.
I'm trying to.
Oh, okay. Don't forget to restock TV always. She's in the basement then. Of being alone. Nobody's going to question what we're doing. Oh, that's another thing. Glasgow, the name Glasgow is used like in almost every book. Like it's the Glasgow. They eat sandwiches in Glasgow's, and I think it's also the plexiglass is Glasgow plexiglass or something. The reel to reels in Black Man Wheel are Glasgow. There's something in Bird Box. It's my great friend Jason Glasgow of Coupe fame. And it's my way of winking at him with every book.
She's just in the tower, but she sees him asleep or he's passed out. In my book, it's on 280.
um,
It says like DAD finally lay back in bed and Kay, still unmoving, held back tears of embarrassment, tears of rage, held back too, the desire to rush screaming across the room to attack the lying thing in its sleep.
right. My question there is they don't spend nights every night together, right? Oh no. She's just in DAD's
She's
room.
just she's just in his
Right,
room.
right, right, right.
But
Yeah,
but
okay.
she is
That's
just
fine.
like creeping around. And then she tells Jay, like, yeah, I've been in your rooms before.
Yeah. Jay's like, yeah, but Jay's also like, this is the greatest thing ever, man. Like just watching her move at all would be like, this is amazing, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy like how immediately smitten with her he is.
Oh no. That I would stand by. That I
Yeah.
would like I believe that if I was Jay, he would take me like the one set where I mean, oh my God, wow, what's this?
And like you don't get the like she obviously cares about him too, but he does seem a little bit more into her.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he's like hypnotized. Like it's like, but that's I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's true. That's true. Like in my daily life, there's like moments like I'll be like brainwashed by like I'll be like, Allison, I think that we should do, and she'll like walk across the room, kind of look over her shoulder, and I'm like, what was I honestly don't remember what I was talking about.
Yeah, but Allison's like a Disney princess almost, like especially when you're around her. Like she
Yeah.
doesn't seem real when you meet her. You're like, how are you a real person?
Yeah. No, I know. I have moments like that too, where it seems unreal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherworldly, other earthly thing. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And her family talks about it the same way. It's there's something. Yeah.
Like I expect like a flock of birds like following her and like little rabbits and stuff.
I
Like,
know, I know, I know. But not in a diva way, in this earthy,
no.
in like an
Yeah.
earthy way. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
she's so nice.
It's
She's like the
of the
nicest
earth way.
person. Yeah.
I want to come up with a phrase instead of people say green thumb for gardening. I don't want to say furry thumb for animals, but she
Uh,
whatever she has with animals, it's like someone has in their garden. It's next level, man. I told you her catching the bat story. So in our last house or two houses ago, whatever, I'm upstairs in bed and I hear, and I hear Allison like, Josh, and I'm like, what's going on? And I look up, and there's a bat flying in the bedroom. I'm like, oh fuck. And I go under the covers, and then I roll out of the bed under like with the blanket on me, and I like somehow get through the door. I remember bumping into the frame, and I go into the bathroom, and I like slam the door, and I finally take the blanket off, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a fucking bat in our house. Let it out. I was like, Allison, and knock, knock, knock on the bathroom door, and I'm like, I open it, and she has it in a mason jar. And I was like, what? What did you just do? And she was like, oh well, it was like hanging on like a light string, like a string for a light. And so I just like gently like was talking to it and like came up and like brought it. And then I follow her downstairs and we had this porch back then that had this brick sort of not wall, but I want to say railing. I don't know what to call it. It was like a brick, whatever, half wall. And she sets like the bat on it. And the bat just sits there. And then Allison was like this close to it. And she's like, you can go, like, go ahead, go ahead. And the bat's like looking back at her and stuff. And I was like, what the fuck am I seeing right now? And the bat like took off into the night.
I
Like I witnessed the whole thing, man. I heard the bat and I turned into a blanket burrito and rolled into a bathroom. And like she heard the bat and like had like a soul moment with it. Yeah, she's and she raised, I don't know, this is before you and I met, but the whole duck thing was
yeah.
unbelievable. That was unbelievable, man.
Yeah,
Because
I don't know.
Thule brought in an egg, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then she brought in another one. I was like, "Oh fuck!" And I put them both. If you remember, there's like a fence right here.
Yeah.
So over here is like the back, back area where we're hanging out, like after party. It was like,
Yeah.
but over here is like woodsy stuff.
Yeah.
And so Thule put them over there. So Alice wakes up, and I tell her that story, and she's like, "Where are those eggs?" And I was like, "Well, I brought them." She's like, "Can you give me those eggs?" And I bring them, and she's looking at them. One of them's like perfect, and one has like a little puncture in it. She orders on Amazon an incubator, and in the extra bedroom became the duck incubator. The one with the hole in it didn't make it. The one that was without the hole did, and a
Oh,
fucking duckling hatched in that extra bedroom. And for like 3 weeks or whatever, there was a duck, like a baby duck, walking around our house and stuff. That Valo and Julie were like, "What is going on?" They were almost didn't even know. And then one day, like a year, it swam in our pool and everything. And then this was all documented online. And then Allison, one day, it was like, oh God, it's like the saddest kind of moment I've ever had with her, actually. Allison was like, I woke up to her like calling out for the duck and stuff. And I like finally go outside and Allison's like on her knees, like with a flashlight, and I can't find the duck. I can't find it. I don't know where he is. And then she called him baby. And I was like, I can't find baby. I can't find baby. And I was like, oh shit, Allison, I think baby like left. I think baby like,
yeah.
and she's like, no, I think a hawk took it or something, blah, blah, blah. A year later, when like, because now it's winter or whatever, the next spring or whatever, I'm not fucking lying. A duck returned and hung out alone in our pool.
Right.
And I woke Allison up and I was like, baby's back. And it was. I mean, there's never been any other fucking duck in our pool before. This one was raised there. And Allison came outside and like baby, like so every year, like baby comes back. That sounded like a song.
I was gonna say Baby's Back would be a great title for either a song or a book, but
Yeah. Yeah. And so I mean, just like that story too. Like, what are we talking about here? Like
I
what
don't I don't know how you describe that kind of person, but
that's definitely
like
not a
whatever it
person.
is, that's what she is.
More of them. I have unbelievable stories of her in the UP. These crazy fucking spiders up there that she'll like Like she'll bring her phone close to, and then she'll like touch like the like, and it won't move. It's just like it knows that she means well or something. I saw her hold a raccoon, a wild one.
What?
I saw her, oh, the craziest one. When I first met her, I go to the UP with her, and her family has like sauna, not sauna, sauna outside. And there's a wood pile. This is the first time with her up there. This is 13 years ago. And she lifts the fucking top log off the pile, and it was just writhing pile of snakes. And I swear on my life, she goes, "Oh, copper bellies," and grabbed a handful and like held them out to me, like, "Look, copper bellies." And I was like, "Whoa, whoa!" Like her and I have been together for like 3 months. I was like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "Oh no, they don't bite." I was like, "What? What?" And they don't. Just next level shit. In fact, the other night I was talking to her and I was like pretty drunk, and I was saying to her like that I feel like it's like a calling of hers, like a Jane Goodall, like a David
Yeah.
Attenborough. I feel like it's a calling of hers. I feel like I've never met a human being that like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
But she's like that with people too. Like
Yeah.
there's something that just
I feel
immediately
like
puts
I'm
you.
I'm more of the people person. She's more
Okay.
no, no, no.
I mean, sure, both of you are like this. Like you both do like make people just immediately feel at
Oh,
ease like, when
she's
they're
dude.
around you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and in the Wowtown troupe, there's like a certain reverence that we all have, and I feel like I'm just part of the gallery in those moments, you know? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here, but like, okay, like I'm just like a fan, like the rest of us. Like,
Yeah.
I'm watching her like create this shit and do this shit and do this incredible shit, and we're just like, man, this woman is like really something else, man.
Well, even the energy she brings, like that Saturday that we were there, that she wasn't at rehearsal for the last show. The
Yes,
next day when she was there, the energy was like 10
right,
times more with her
right.
there.
It's yes, exactly,
It's
exactly.
insane.
The energy without her is nuts bolts, like
Yeah.
what do we need to do, like this kind of, but with her it's like full color.
Yeah. It's like
Yeah,
it's serious, but it's also playful and like just fun.
I know she is a unicorn. Her family knows it, and I know it, and it's something that her and her family have like talked about, like a conversation that we're having right now.
Yeah.
Similar conversation with me and like her mom, like me and her family, like where it's like, man, Allison, yeah, that one is, it's just like a unique genius, man.
Yeah, it's insane. But she does also scare you a lot, so she evens it out.
Okay, so that one the other morning, oh my God. I almost feel like she crossed the line. Fast asleep. And I hear in my sleep, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, is that Allison's voice, And then I looked, and then I opened my eyes, and like she was like this close to me, wearing this like hideous witch mask. But my first, because I just woke up, it kind of just looked like a giant white face, like a giant white circle with this little squinty like face or something. And I was like, and then I realized like, oh, it's like a witch face. But I also feel like there was something in when I was still asleep. Because when I was like coming up, I was like, that's Allison's talking to you. So I almost feel like it would have been better off without the voice.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
feel like it'd be better off if she just made some like had some recording of something that
Yeah.
wasn't her talking. Something that woke me up, some like alarm sound or not alarm, I don't know what. Scratching sound, maybe.
You would have died.
I might have died. Right.
Yeah.
There was something on the rise to consciousness where I literally was like, it's Allison, it's Allison's like singing or whatever it was there's a sound that had a tone of her voice in it, a quality of her voice in it. And then I got to the top and then I see this thing and I was like, I was like, like that. And then I said to her, I was like, you know what? Honestly, dude, that one was just mean.
Did she have to set an alarm to like wake up to do this to you?
No, no, Allison, no. She goes to bed around like 7 or 8 every night. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. She is a night owl, man.
That's well, I mean, you are too.
No, I go to bed by like midnight, 1, 2, 3 or
Yeah, and
4,
then you're
maybe.
then you're up at like 5 and 6.
I know. I know. I don't know what that is. You're like that.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, are we gonna die early because we don't sleep enough?
Yeah. Did you see that preview for The Woman in the Yard? The Woman in the Yard, is that what it's called? I think it's called The Woman in the Yard. It looks like
Is that the new
okay.
is that the new Bloomhouse?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I saw
yeah,
that today
yeah.
on Instagram.
I
Yeah.
thought that one looked like in theory that seemed like a great idea to me. Like some woman in black just sitting in your yard and you're like, what the fuck is
I
this?
can't I cannot see that.
I was like that,
That's my
yeah, that was
biggest
like
fear.
this is whatever this is good. Yeah.
Uh-uh.
The premise
No,
like immediately saying to me,
every time I walk downstairs, like our whole house is windows downstairs, it feels like, and I know one day there's gonna be something in my yard.
well, it's weird. Allison's biggest fear is someone like watching through the window.
Yeah, that's me too.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
like, yeah, because
Allison's
you messed me with me
biggest
that one night. You're like, someone is watching you. And I was like, why would you do
oh
this
yeah, no,
to me?
Allison's like that is her fear. Like mine is like there's like an entity in the like somewhere in the room that looks like my brother or something that's like, hey, like how are you?
Yeah,
You
I don't
for the
want that
Lions
either.
fan? And I'm like, oh Jesus Christ, man, this thing's trying like is this tricking me or is my mind tricking me?
Mhm.
But Allison's is like I watched The Exorcist with her and her pastor father, and they were both like I wouldn't say laughing, but it all seemed goofy to them. This like demon, like bleh, like kid in a bed.
Yeah,
But I watched fucking Hush with her, the Flanagan Hush, or I watched like a stalker like movie, not like Jason, like a stalker like movie. And
yeah,
Elton is freaked the fuck out, dude.
I can't do it. I like
Yeah,
home invasion stuff. I
right,
can't.
exactly. But you
Yeah.
know what? I'll tell you though, that makes my job of scaring her a lot easier. All I gotta do is stand outside. All I gotta do is go outside the window.
But do you ever successfully scare her?
So one time in the same house, the two houses ago with the bat, there was like stairs that went down and then another staircase, that kind of thing. So basement, kitchen level, whatever, what the fuck it was. There was a landing that was even with a door, and she was like vacuuming a staircase or something. And I wasn't even trying to scare her, but I like come up to the back door and I was like standing there for like 1 second watching her. I wasn't even standing there creepily. And she turned around and like still cites it as like the time that I like scared the shit out of her. But I mean, I was literally just like coming home. I was like, that's not the same as donning a witch's like fucking face and like crouching by the bed and whispering and no, that's not the same thing.
My favorite is still when she was messing with your Alexa or whatever from far away and you were home by
But
yourself.
that was genius. That was next
Yeah.
level shit.
Yeah.
Another brilliant one is at the desk that
Yeah.
I'm looking at. You know that one?
Yeah, that one's a great too.
No, that one's next level. Like, because there's enough room. There's enough room for me to like. There's one bar in the way, but like my leg's fully extended right now. So there's enough room for a human being under here without me knowing it. Like, and she's also like small in a way. So like or a contortionist in a way, right? I can imagine Allison like squeezing through a tennis racket head. And like so I'm like I like fucking like I'm like sitting here and I start to write, and all of a sudden I kind of hear something. I look down and her fucking hands like rah. Wow, that's a Grateful Dead mug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a few of them.
Hmm.
We have this one and we have some dancing bears.
I'm gonna go listen to the fucking Grateful Dead right now. Hard to like express in like I would like to be buried with these books. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to
Yeah.
express in like an interview or a discussion or a conversation. It's hard to express like how fucking much these mean because like I don't know if there's writers that like you're like, oh, this is like Inspection felt like a breakthrough. Like
Yeah.
Inspection felt like a creative breakthrough in terms of like you didn't even plan on writing this book. The premise is intense and you wrote it and now we're on to the next one. And Carol felt like a breakthrough in terms of like, is it a Western? Is it not? That kind of thing. And again, starting with smoke, but it wasn't about smoke. So like you like learn so much from each one. And so
Yeah.
like that it's more like not thinking the conversation was bad or wrong or something. It's more like, did I convey like how much this book has meant to me in my life? Like, and if that doesn't mean anything to anyone else, I don't care. Like, but in my life, Inspection was huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Like we talk about nights, like you talk about a night you had a great night with a friend of yours at the bar, or a great movie you saw. I'm like, I was alone with inspection for like 2 months, like hammering it out, and at the end, like was like, ooh, that one. Like
Yeah.
it was a great, great rough draft experience, the inspection. And then add in the Allison uh advice or suggestion of Kay, and the whole thing like came together in this like brilliant way or something. Yeah.
I think that like incidents around the house and inspection to me are like good entryways into people that wanted to read your books. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I feel like they're like accessible
Yeah.
enough where like if you aren't used to reading like horror or like this type of
Right.
genre, they're good like
Right.
entry
Right. Because
points.
inspection's not
Yeah.
like a slasher novel or something.
No.
But at the
No.
same time, if you're having a good time with it, or if you've sunk into it and then you get to the holy shit, Technicolor red ending,
Yeah.
then by then you would maybe accept it. I don't know.